Hey y'all, it's Shayla from Making Lemonade from Lemons, and today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how to go about planning to plant herbs and flowers. And you'll hear my kids in the background a little bit. I have not gotten any planning done on my garden with the exception of my herbs, flowers, and some more cold crops. So when I am planning to plant, I normally will use Clyde's Garden Planner, okay? And it's got two sides. There's spring, you flip it over, and there's fall, okay? And then all you need to know is you need to know your last frost date and your first frost date. So for your spring, you need to know your last spring frost date. So what you can do is you look it up. You can Google it. You can just put in your city and in Google and your last frost date. So for me, I would put Salisbury last frost date, and it will come up and it will tell you approximately when you can expect your last frost to be. That is not 100% accurate. It is an estimation based on past springs. So sometimes your weather may be a little bit different. So you need to make sure that you plan for that as well. Okay, so like I said, I have only planned for my flowers and my herbs and some of my cold crops. And that's because I'm planting my flowers and my herbs before I start planting my tomatoes and other summer crops, because they take a little bit longer to germinate and to grow big enough to really see much. My experience from last year, and last year was a learning experience for me, and what I can and can't do here in my area in grow bags, because I specifically grow everything in grow bags, with the exception of most of my flowers. Most of my flowers are in ground, but all of my plants, all of my vegetables, herbs, and all that kind of thing are in actual grow bags. So what I have done is I have planned out, and whenever I say I planned them, I have, and let me show you guys, I have written out all of my flower, I've written out all of my flower seeds that I have. So this is what it looks like, and I have 4 pages just of flowers, just flowers. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. I've got 8 varieties of nasturtium. And last year when I planted these, because I planted these right after my first frost, or right after my last frost date. And when I planted them right after my last frost date, they came up and they, you know, I could see the leaves and all that kind of thing. And they barely got to the point where they were blooming before it started getting really, really hot. And that's because here where I am in Zone 7B, North Carolina, we actually have a very short spring. We have a very long growing season generally, but a very short spring. So it goes from cold to hot. There's very little comfortable in between time. So, and nasturtiums are one of those that prefer cooler weather. They don't like hot weather at all. So I didn't get very many flowers from my nasturtium, and they didn't get very big. So I plan to start them inside and then plant them outside, transplant them outside. I have 9 different zinnias. Oh, and one more thing about nasturtium. Nasturtium are also edible, and they can be used on your salads. So that's another reason to grow them. I haven't eaten them on a salad yet, but I have eaten a leaf, and they are really good. The flowers are also edible, and they look really pretty on salads. But my zinnias, I have, like I said, 9 different varieties of zinnias, and I'm definitely going to plant at least one of each type. The butterflies and the bees absolutely loved my zinnias, but they also didn't start blooming until later on, and I needed them to bloom earlier. So I'm going to start them inside. Like I said, I'm probably going to start those within the next couple of days. And so what I'll do is once I've planted those, I'll video it when I do it, and I will show you what I've done, how many I've done, that kind of thing. But I definitely need to start these out inside earlier than I did last year. I did start these inside last year, and what I did was I planted them inside grow bags with a tomato plant. So with every tomato plant, I had a flower, whether it was zinnia or marigold, or I had, I think, a forget-me-not in one of them, those kind of things. So I had a flower and an herb and a tomato plant. I'm not going to do that this year. It actually was very pretty, and my herbs generally got kind of choked out by the flower and the tomato plant. And the flowers were, with the exception of the marigolds, I could probably do marigolds again. If I do that at all, I will do marigolds, but I definitely won't do zinnias. Zinnias are too big for the most part. The Persian carpet zinnias are a little bit smaller, and so I could probably go with those, but I think that they get shaded out, so they don't get as much sun as they really should get in order to be big. And then, but the zinnias, the other zinnias, they compete with the tomato plants, because my tomato plants got so big, but so were my zinnias, and they were competing with each other, I think, for the soil. So I'm not going to do that this year. But I'm going to try to make sure that I plant plenty of them, because like I said, the pollinators really, really love them. Then I have 5 different varieties of calendula or calendula. However you pronounce it. I pronounce it calendula. And they also have herbal properties, and so I plan to grow more of those this year. I am probably going to grow at least 2 or 3 of each of these, and probably in a big grow bag. Then I have forget-me-nots. I've got Gaillardia, and those are really pretty. They are generally like a yellow and burgundy and orange type of flower. They're really pretty. My sunflowers are different. I have 9 varieties of sunflowers as well as my zinnias. And what I'm going to do is, I don't know if you've seen any of my videos, previous videos, during the summer. I had this big area behind my tomatoes and stuff that was wildflowers, and it was a mess. But I had just thrown out some wildflower mix, and whenever they started coming up, I didn't know which were wildflowers and which were, which was just weeds. So it was kind of hard to tell. So it got kind of, I think that it got kind of lost. Some of the flowers got choked out by the weeds. We have some pretty invasive grass species here. We've got the Virginia creeper and all that kind of stuff. So, so I'm going to plant, what I'm going to do with these, because they also pull out, sunflowers are known to pull out toxins from the soil. They're very heavy feeders in the soil. So I plan to plant back behind where I did last year, where I planted those wildflowers. I'm going to clear that out. I'm going to smother the weeds and stuff. I've got to put down my tarps out there, but I'm going to smother all that out and get it ready for whenever I start planting. And I plan to plant all of my sunflowers right there in a row, all down the side of the fence that's there. So I plan on planting a lot more sunflowers this year. The birds really, really loved the sunflowers, and I really battled with that. I didn't even get one good head of sunflowers last year for myself. And I saw a post about that was where Jess from Roots and Refuge had suggested that you can put a pillowcase, or you can put some kind of netting or whatever over whatever head of sunflower that you want to keep. So I think I'm going to try that this year. I will leave most of them open so that the birds can have the majority of them. Like I said, I'm going to plant a lot of them, but that way I can have some too. Those are in some of my videos too, where I struggled with the with the birds, but it's okay. They loved them, and I loved seeing them too. So I also have marigolds. They have herbal properties as well. I've got 4 different types, and I will be planting a lot of those, because not only do they have herbal properties, but they also have they help to keep away, they help to deter certain other pests, like bugs that you don't want. So I'm definitely going to grow a lot of those. Then I have, just because they're pretty, I have 4 different types of snapdragons. I also have Pacific Mix Status. I've got some phlox, some straw flowers, some sweet peas. These are the flowers, the sweet pea flower. I also have hollyhocks, scented stalks, asters, cosmos, some dianthus, and carnations. I have all of those are really more to bring in the pollinators. I'm hoping that having lots and lots of flowers will help to bring them in sooner. And if I can get them planted here inside first and then transplant them, I'm hoping that the sooner I do that, the sooner I'll have pollinators, and that'll be good for my garden. Then I have hyssop, which is an herbal, it's got herbal properties. I also have lupine, I have bee balm, I've got American, well, 3 different types of poppies. And then I have some lavender that's already planted, and so I'm probably not going to plant any more of that this year. But I have seeds so that I can plant them later on if I decide that I want to plant more lavender, which I love the smell of lavender and I would love to have more, but I just don't have a ton of room. So then I have my echinacea, which has herbal properties. I have feverfew, which is herbal properties. Then I have a dwarf rainbow mix sweet alyssum. And so I'm probably going to use that sort of as a border in front of where I plant the sunflowers. And then I have a toothache plant, yarrow, and St. John's wort, which are all 3 different herbal. So I've got all of those planned to plant, and I'm going to get started on that in a couple of days, along with my other herbs. I have the basil and thyme, oregano. I've got various different ones. I have some comfrey that I'm going to be planting, and some other herbs. Yes, I see. They always want to give me a hug whenever I'm filming, which is fine. Anyways, so that's what I have planned so far. I still have not sat down and really planned out my tomatoes and beans and squash and pumpkins, and I have all these seeds, and I know I still have to get some seeds, but I have all of the herbs and all of the flowers and all of my cold crops that I'm going to grow. Those are the ones I already have. So, like I said, I will be getting that video put out whenever I plant those. And I'll probably show you guys a little bit about what I have done with a grow station down in my basement as well. So anyways, that should be coming out in a couple of days. And I really appreciate you guys spending time with me. And if you have any questions or if you have any suggestions, just leave them down in the description or in the comments below. And we'll see you soon.